How's it going? Welcome to this new episode of the Alex.tv show. As you can see, I have a guest. I have the pleasure and honor of having Juan Carlos from Uruguay. Thank you very much, Juan Carlos, for accepting my invitation to appear on the show. Good afternoon in Uruguay. Good morning in Mexico.
Well, thank you very much, Alex, to the people there in Mexico, to you for this invitation to your space. For me, it's very valuable.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos.
So, I thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Juan Carlos. We were chatting a bit, and like all episodes, we don't have a prepared script, but today we'd like to talk, about this important phenomenon happening in humanity, the expansion of consciousness. Our consciousnesses are expanding. This is a fact. But also to talk a little bit, if you want half and half, or we'll see how, about the universe and our life in other parts and the memories that, if you'd like, share your experiences with us. Definitely your contacts with beings from other, dimensions from other places in the universe. But if you'd like, let's start with this topic that I know is something very important to you. What is this phenomenon that is taking place of the expansion of consciousness on Earth?
Well, before moving on, let's say, so that people can understand, right? I was a skeptic. I was someone who didn't believe until, I lived an experience in what is ufology, in what is contactism, an experience with a group of people, an experience that we didn't seek out because we were there in a field. This here in Uruguay, in my case, was investigated by ufologists, right? And I also have an audiovisual record that I passed to a research channel as well, where I record a dimensional portal. So there's a whole process in my life, right? For me, it was very impactful what the paradigm shift is, because in my personal case, I didn't imagine living an experience like that with a group of people. A physical experience, right? An experience that we could see with our own eyes. See, as the saying goes, seeing is believing, right? Following that experience, there were many things, because let's say that when I was 14 years old, I connected with something. It manifested to me that it was true because I saw it. Well, I saw it only once physically. It appeared near my house, which actually, this is my grandparents' house. And a being appeared that was dressed in white, and that being walks and then looks at me. I hide behind a wall, a human-like being that was dressed in white. I hide behind a wall. And I was impressed to see that, right? And then I went to talk to my parents that I had seen it, and it confirms to me that that being was one of the beings that spoke with me. Because when I started in this, I started with psychography, which is automatic writing. After that experience with what was psychography, which I later found out was psychography because I filled several notebooks, right? I'll even show you the notebooks I have on psychography later. After that, I didn't know what it was, because in itself, that being that appeared never told me what it was, if it was an angel or what it was, right? It showed up, I got scared, I hid, but there was a connection through automatic writing. And then I quit. I got into the world of studies to study, right? And I became a skeptic. And I said, okay, maybe what I saw, I don't know, maybe it's part of some experiment. I didn't know what it was. And then many years went by. And it wasn't until the year 2015 that the experience happened, that somehow I'd been told, those beings had told me I was going to have a very powerful experience, right? When I turned 32, I was going to go through that experience around then, right? They marked an age, right? And sure enough, I had a physical contact experience with beings in a field, which I didn't imagine, right? Because I was walking around there, I was, let's say, exploring. And for me, it felt like a really intense transition, because we're talking about the fact that I honestly didn't believe. I truly wasn't interested. I didn't like it. And it wasn't even something I ever followed, the spiritual theme. And I was pulled, right, into this whole universe, because also the subject of ufology has a lot to do with the awakening of consciousness. It has a lot to do with it because, of course, they are very high frequency beings that are vibrating at a very high level, right? But the interesting thing about this process in my life is that it was like I was really being led, by these beings, actually, right? And at one point, I remember that after knowing the experience, living it, maybe what I'm living, I don't know, is crazy, right? So anyway, in the year 2018, I started sharing the experience publicly. I made a YouTube channel. I remember I covered my image so no one would see my face, and I started talking. People started writing to me, and a process began there that unimaginable, because the healing cases, the cases of people who have come to learn about contactism was brutal, right? To this day. We're talking about how in 1 week, 2 weeks, I had 200 people in a contact group. And then I had invitations. Well, from there, I was invited to other channels that I didn't even know who they were. Those channels from Mexico, from everywhere, I didn't understand, because it was also like I shared something and people wanted to learn. And the thing is that people learned. And then there were internet channels that interviewed people who had experiences with me, right? I mean, from other countries, who had seen the ships in the air, people who had been cured of a disease, people who couldn't have children, who went to the doctor and there was no way for a woman to get pregnant. I mean, brutal cases, right? So for me, it was very intense, because I thought maybe that what I'm saying is just me. Maybe it's just a fantasy of mine. And let's say that the awakening in my case was like being led, and I was dragged by that reality. And that for me is evidence. Now, seeing the cases, the people, that's what gave me the strength to continue. If it weren't for so many people, and every day I sometimes do TikTok lives, I do live experiences with people. I have them join in and people cry, they thank me, always doing experiences with people. And that was, let's say, the gift from these beings, that they left me with the people, simply being a channel, right? It's not that I'm the best, nothing like that. They made me a channel to carry their message. So the awakening of consciousness in my case was physical, and continues to be physical through the testimonies. And once I met some people from Spain, I had a guy who interviewed me for a channel, and well, he told me that your case was physical, but sometimes there are people who experience something very quote unquote inferior, like a lucid dream or something like that. And for them, that's enough. For them, it's like very powerful. So I think that all the processes that occur, whether they are perhaps more less, it's not that they see physically with people, or the people who see them have things that are more holistic. It's also valid. It has its validity too. Everything is recognized. I don't close myself off only to those who leave evidence. I open up to everyone. And I believe we are in a quite significant era. In terms of the awakening of consciousness, I believe that humanity as a whole is gradually emerging from an old paradigm. This is the paradigm that, let's say, the so-called deep state, or those in positions of hidden power, we could say, have tried for a long time to maintain and keep in place. That old paradigm is now, in my view, slowly falling apart, beginning to unravel and losing its grip on our collective consciousness. And it's very easy to understand, Alex, I'll explain. The big fight right now is over fossil fuels, the major businesses of the system. So these beings, from an exopolitical point of view, begin to carry out a clandestine intervention. So what the system does is try to say, no, look, they're blue. Look, they're negative beings. It's like a village, as if the world is a kind of village, like in the movie. And they tell you that they're bugs, the ones out there that they'll destroy, so that people don't go out and are afraid of the truth. So the world, let's say the world, not Gaia, but the system that's in this world is a system that's designed to keep people in that ignorance. But out there are these beings that intervene, that show up and are there talking about this knowledge of the awakening. The awakening is knowing the truth, right? As Christ said, the truth will set you free. That's something that Christ used to say. And the truth, what is the truth? It's that we're on the threshold of what is precisely humanity knowing the truth. It's already happening, that there are more sightings. You have Luis Elizondo in the United States who's giving talks about this. You have Nick Pope, many people who are already talking about this and communicating it to humanity, right? And in this case, it's fine. I think it's totally valid. And these beings have been leading me to a form of connection with them. They always operate through what is free energy, The knowledge, for example, I'll tell you a couple of things about what radionics is, so you have an idea, right? They work a lot with the idea. They've explained the idea, of course, to me a lot. Even coils created with silver wire or created with copper wire, and then the magnets, certain magnets that are placed in a specific way. They've explained to me that what radionics is knowledge that was very much dismissed by the system, right? But what happens is there's a reality in this. These beings operate. They've told me that in reality, the human being is capable of creating their own reality. Well, we're one. We have that potential to be able to create, to cure ourselves, to heal ourselves, right? We have that enormous potential. So they say that through certain matters like radionics, they lead someone to be able to self-heal or be able to free themselves from a conflict, right? It's very complex maybe to make it understood, right? But they talk a lot about, I mean, so you have an idea. The human being is vibration. They always talk to me about vibration. So many things that are out there that make us vibrate in lack spiritually, right? Maybe a news report that talks about things that are negative, that makes you vibrate in a state of frequency, in a type of frequency that doesn't help physically, spiritually, or physically, and that creates illnesses, creates conflicts, right? Emotional issues. What are fights, arguments? So of course, the war we have nowadays, the spiritual war, right? Of the awakening is that the old paradigm is everything that's been created and strategically designed, including technology. And I even think there's a technology meant to induce fear and panic in people, which is happening, as Stephen Greer, the American ufologist, has said, who has spoken about certain technologies that exist to manipulate the population, a group of people, or to create divisions. I believe in that, you know. That stimulates a type of frequency, a type of vibration that creates a distortion in people. No, you realize, if we talk about the technology out there, the electromagnetic field technology, what this whole world can induce. And yes, one notices there's more violence, that yes, there's a lot of separation, a lot of duality, but it's also something induced by a system. So the awakening is very valuable. Very extraordinary things are happening in humanity. Very beautiful things are happening. But at the same time, the war is also intensified, right? A war that is noticeable in the awakening. It's noticeable that humanity is also, there's a lot of banality, right? A lot of viral content too that makes us say, oh, how can this prosper? Because the system also wants humanity not to think, right? To not have the capacity for thought to realize things, right? And if we talk about the things on the internet, today's influencers are something banal. The old influencers, who were people who maybe did extraordinary things and were in their positions because of their level of creativity, genius, and work, whereas today, there's a system always looking for ways to keep people from thinking as they should. So we must also recognize the light, which is all this happening in humanity, and also recognize the darkness in which we are living. It's more or less like that. I wanted to tell you a bit about...
No, perfectly fine. I don't know if I can ask you some questions, please, because I'll forget later since you talked about so many things. I'd like to start with when you mentioned having this stage of skepticism. It's very normal. It's very normal in humanity. I think the vast majority are skeptics. I think another program they put us in is that if I don't see it, I don't hear it, I don't smell it, I can't taste it, or I don't touch it, the five senses, or I don't understand it, the brain, or it doesn't make sense, the brain, then it isn't. Like someone explained, for example, nuclear radiation, you don't smell it, you don't feel it at first when it's not killing you, but you don't. And if it exists, right?
And it also happens, Alex, sorry to interrupt you, with electromagnetic fields.
Sure, it's the same thing, really. I mean, they've defined it.
I have devices that you detect, devices that are, I have them stored there, and the radiation is there.
Sure. I have an issue that is, it's called electrosensitivity. Since cellular networks started, not the current ones, I was 19 when I started feeling this energy. And if I'm standing in front of a power tower, one of these big towers, I totally feel the energy and it feels artificial. No, there's no resonance with me.
It's 100% real.
That's right, there isn't. So it's as if my body or my being, more my being than my body, were warning me and there's a rejection. I mean, I want to leave.
Right, this device. When I go looking for what contactism is, where I can't have anything electric, this little device right here, if I bring it close to this thing here, to this part, to the electrical part, look.
Sure, it measures EMF, right? I imagine.
Sure.
Uh-huh. And if you bring it close to the internet or a cell tower or something, it'll go crazy.
You stand by the tower like the ones you mentioned, and it turns red.
Yeah, sure.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's like I have that device, but it's natural. I mean, you know, so it's warning me, and it's an issue called electrosensitivity, because essentially it's telling me don't be here.
And look at the curious thing, Alex. Now I'll just make this comment and you can keep talking.
Yes, thanks.
That you put on, for example, right? This has even been ridiculed in many movies about UFOs. But you put aluminum foil on your body. What is this paper? What's it called? That paper?
Aluminum foil.
It doesn't let it through. It doesn't pass. The contamination doesn't pass. That radiation doesn't pass.
Yes, a Faraday cage, as it's known, right? I mean, you can, even if a room, although in that case you have to be a bit careful. If you fill a whole room, for example, with lead, or you fill it with aluminum foil, they don't pass. But the problem is that if you generate them inside the room, they'll bounce, they'll be amplified.
Sure, exactly.
So I have tried, there are companies that actually sell things like caps, and they really do help some, but in the end, I have achieved it more through consciously seeking protection. And when I do that, it makes a difference.
No, let's say your body warns you.
That's right.
Some people are warned, something disagrees with them.
That's right.
And unfortunately, even if I don't want to admit it sometimes, or no one wants to admit it, the electromagnetic field. And there's even more.
Yes. Well, I think later I'm going to do a little editing because, the platform doesn't really like us talking about its owners, its sponsors. But you're absolutely right. I'm with you 100%. But I wanted to ask you, going back, I was the one who diverted the topic with the nuclear energy thing. So when you had that skepticism, did you just think that we only have one life, that there's nothing after death? Or did you have some basis in a religion? I mean, what was your skepticism like?
No. It was skepticism, and I didn't believe in anything. I didn't believe in God, and I thought death was all there was. No, I just denied everything. And what I experienced in the past was that being that appeared to me, I thought it was some kind of experiment, something strange, something military.
Okay, something physical. I mean, something terrestrial, physical, and so on.
But I don't know if it was something military. Let's see, a psychography.
That's right. And then you have the experience that you say you had with several people who I imagine saw ships. I don't know if the beings came down too.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, I imagine. That's why I'm telling you. I think you've already understood that they are your friends, right? You must know them from somewhere else.
Yes, well, now you see, that's why.
It wasn't a coincidence.
It wasn't a coincidence, no. One of the things that impacted me the most, look at this. I was showing you, I have many psychographies, okay? Very strange things. They even show types of technologies. Sometimes they are things that are very, very crazy.
Yes, many people who don't want to understand it or whatever will say, well, those are...
I have psychographies, I'll explain. Sometimes they appear through writings. They appear as very drawings, and they have a lot to do sometimes with the culture of Mexico, the indigenous people, right? If you look like things that exist.
Of course.
I understand it, but the people I show it to don't. Take a look at this here, How many times have similar things appeared, and what are the carvings in?
Yes, in caves, this, yes.
Sure. Well, they communicate with me through psychographies. I mean, it can also be channeled, right?
So it's actually a kind of claircognizance, right? You just sort of start to, it's almost like you're channeling something and then you begin to express it in that way, just like that. Is that correct?
Actually, it's more complex because in reality, I let them directly move my hand, okay?
That's right.
They move my hand, and there's a section I had saved here because just yesterday, so you can see that I sometimes have piles of notebooks and pads. But yesterday, let's say that I was connecting with these beings. I have it here. I put it away somewhere here. What happens, what they explained to me, to explain to you a bit, I'm going to tell you something that might be very intense. They explain that sunlight, okay? It's a very large source of free energy, a source of energy at a healing level.
Yes, of course it is.
So they tell you that if you place a quartz, okay, on specific platforms and you build a specific platform with the quartzes, that quartz, while it's true that quartz already has its own vibration, it can be recharged, it gets recharged and can be used to help people. And another thing they always explain to me, these beings explain to me about this topic, is that this world we know, what I'm about to tell you, is a bit more complex. It's a world that is an illusion, they tell me. They explain to me that the world is an illusion. I mean, while you're alive, you're going to perceive things, right? You're going to perceive what you're living, this experience. You're going to perceive what matter is, right? And let's say when one leaves this world ceases to exist. That's why they say it's an illusion. I've asked them, but well, if I leave this world, there will remain I don't know my children. They will remain friends. And if I had this object, they will also have it. And they told me that in reality, they received that object because they have created it through you. That is, it's like they tell me that human beings are like they're creating. If I show you this now and something happens to me, then you're going to use this because you've seen it and you've created it, right? It's very complex. It's like it's a mix of creation, right? We are creating reality, what the illusion is. So they tell you this is an illusion and human beings are creating reality all the time. So when I went through the experience, my contact experience, it was something that happened maybe because I was doing psychography at the time, like a kind of movement in what time is in reality. From a quantum point of view, it's like there was a quantum distortion that allowed me to see, to connect with that reality. I mean, I started to vibrate from a different point of view that connected me with a reality different from the one I lived. That is, I mean, that I'm seeing, according to them, exists because I'm vibrating at a frequency where I'm forming this. It's kind of hard to understand, right? But that if there is a vibrational energetic process, okay, that reality is modified and one begins to create, one connects with a different reality, and that different reality begins to connect with your reality and with everyone. A very well-known case that happened in Mexico about this was the case of Pachita, who was someone who connected with different realities. And so she helped people because that process of dislocation with this reality occurred. I mean, she stepped out of this reality. She connected with that reality. It's quite complex, right? But it's achieved, it's attained. Sometimes it's achieved by altering consciousness through methodologies like psychography, through light language and all that, which I'll explain to you later. But that was what they explained to me. What happens? Let's say, so it's understood if you place people in a reality, a group of people in a system where there is, in that system there is, let's say, that everyone has to eat from that place, drink water from that point, and everyone has to sleep at 8 at night, and that's the reality. And you put an artificial light, they will create that reality. They will live and they will create that reality. It's like we humans get used to that paradigm, right? To the point that one starts creating the whole world through that paradigm you formed. When we understand that we are creators, that we are vibration, that we are vibrating, that everything around us is vibration, and that it's very complex because although you see this, which is matter, but it's vibration, it's energy in itself. It exists while one, I mean, it will exist for, if I leave this world, it will exist for you afterwards. It will exist as if it were because you believed it through me, because I used it and I had it, right? But we are all creating all the time. That's what was explained to me. When we understand that, and tomorrow someone has a paranormal experience, right? Paranormal meaning something that moves away from the real, then we are vibrating without realizing it in a frequency that connects us with that reality, right? We connect with what we are. Wow. But what does this mean? This isn't what I usually see, but it's a vibrational connection. And that's when a process begins that is complex. I'm telling you what they explained to me, right? The logic of why I went through that experience years ago, right? Why one goes through that kind of physical experience, what happens to the physical body, the experience. And I obviously understood it. Maybe my stance was to understand it from a perspective that's a bit more complex, according to their explanation. Not so much thinking from a dogmatic point of view, right? There are bad bugs that are going to eat you, and there are little angels and good ones. But rather, they explain something much more complex to me that has to do with vibration, you see? Depending on how you're vibrating, you will attract that, which maybe you're afraid of, or maybe you're not, right? You're connecting in that vibration. It's a vibrational matter, right? And from there, well, for me, it was very difficult because at first it was very irrational. In the sense that, of course, rational. And when one says, well, now I've learned, when we say rational, it's because we adjust to the world around us, right? I mean, rational for the world is for the system, not rational as in, I mean, the rational doesn't actually belong to a system. One can be consistent within the spiritual world as well, right? That's why I say when one says skeptic, it's because we believe in what the system shows us, nothing more, right? The box, right? It's the box of the system. So when I started getting to know this, I was afraid. I had a lot of fear. Fear in the sense that it was something unknown to me, but it was something I gradually accepted because I began to understand it. I experienced it firsthand and I came to comprehend it. And one of the things I learned in that process is learning how to bring that reality to people. So even though my rational mind is still there, it always will be, right? Analyzing things, let's say that when I connect with them, because later I had to learn to connect with them to help people, very impactful things have happened, right? I was telling you a few days ago, there was a girl whose ear was bleeding. They were about to call the doctor. It was something very, that one would say, geez, this is impossible to be resolved. I mean, you have to take her to the doctor. And I did a session that I call T-bin, which they actually call T-bin, right? Where I connect with a being that, let's say, instead of it being something coherent, that being, I let it enter into me, right? Like a kind of embodiment. I don't know what to call it. That being connects with me, okay? I give freedom to that consciousness, to that energy, to use my mind as if it were, I don't know, as if my biological body were a kind of robot, right? I lend it to these consciousnesses so they can work. They connect with my body and they begin to work. It's very difficult to explain the mechanism. The thing is that the hardest part is the surrender. It's leaving the surrender to these consciousnesses so they can work. It's the part that can even take you years, I mean, or it can take you months. But the most complex part is it's like you have to leave your personality on a hanger, right? Hanging there and let these consciousnesses start to work. I made the connection. Obviously, people have laughed at this. Phew, you have no idea. People have laughed at this because that's how it is. A lot of people have laughed. But well, even the girl, when I was doing that table for her, she would laugh, right? But I concentrate, and even though the girl was laughing because of the sound and everything, I start using a language that I later Googled because I didn't know what light language was. I started Googling at the time. I started looking for why that language, like a language like the Holy Spirit, a language kind of like in tongues, something strange. And I came across light language, and then I started to investigate. And then at that moment, it's a message, a language that comes from a group of Syrian beings, according to the information I received, right? And these beings really do this. I mean, even if one says, well, okay, I mean, I have experience in what is ufology, contactism. But still, the experience that one lives through, I mean, the people who live through the experience through Tiaguin, it was the case of the girl and several others. And in this girl's case, this being through me started making the sound, touching the ear, sometimes at a certain distance. It's as if it took things out of you. It's like it was helping her, right, without touching her. And after that, the being goes like this, touches her forehead, and the girl falls completely and peacefully asleep. And I was amazed because it's not that I lose consciousness when I do the technique. I'm conscious. It's like I'm letting that manifest in that language. Later, the girl says, I don't feel pain anymore. Later, they called her. She felt no more pain. The pain was gone. She was cured, totally cured. She had no more bleeding or anything else. So I say, there are things, right? Or people who've told me, look, I had a problem in my head. I had to go to the doctor. I don't know if I had something there that needed doing, and it disappears, right? Look, this doesn't replace. I don't want this. It's something complementary, right? That's the idea to traditional medicine, but they are really things that, well, that have left me a gift that is wonderful, right? Which is that connection. And also the good thing is that it's something that people can learn, that it's not so, I mean, it seems very difficult maybe for those who hear it, but it's not that difficult when one commits, right? Look, what I learned from experience is that you don't have to wait until you see something to live it. I mean, one can, if I start to think about how my experience was, I started connecting without knowing it was psychography. So it's always better to seek the experience until one day, boom, the change happens there, the impact, right? And that's when you confirm that the experience you had is a real experience. But it goes in that, in that direction, as you can see. But anyway, based on what you've asked, they are positive beings. because in reality, everything they've shown me and everything they've taught me is positive. Besides the fact that I'm still alive and all that, right? But yes, I'm aware that there's a system out there that specifically seeks to make people afraid, traumatized, held back, right? And not cross that threshold, you know? To know that it's not as much as they say out there, more or less.
Wow. And by the way, my apologies for muting the microphone at times because there's construction here where I am in my office since we're recording on a Saturday and noise is allowed today. So I don't want it to, if you see me muting the microphone, it's when the drilling starts. No, incredible, Juan Carlos. Once again, many, many things to talk about. Yes, look, some people have told me that all extraterrestrials are bad. Well, to start with, I think we're all extraterrestrials. So, well, that includes us too. And no, as in everything, there's free will in the universe and there are races. And within those races, surely there are elements at one vibrational level and others at another. So free will is universal. And the concept, as you say, of good and bad is a spectrum that I think happens a lot here. And in these beings from a higher dimension, from a higher vibration, they've already transcended those concepts, right? Because in essence, there's an acceptance that, well, in our journey, in our infinite journey as spirits, because I know this body will perish one day and my experience as Alex will end. However, I know that my spirit, which has another name, knows its past experiences and has a lot of future ahead. So for me, that thing about whether they are, I mean, there are people who give Sirius a negative and positive connotation. Those who give it a negative one, it's because there have been many wars. Sorry about that. The noise started. I hope it's not heard. There are many wars. There have been many wars in Sirius. It was even said that Jesus Christ had come from Sirius and then moved to Pleiades. But in his times in Sirius, he was a warrior. So that's why they give it that. But definitely everything you explained to me is benevolence to me. And to me, it's purposeful and it's positive. Initially, I feel the relationship is of false light because more than darkness, if this weren't positive, it would be false light. They are, when there's an exchange, they ask you to do or give things of yourself or your loved ones or etc. for an energy exchange. What is the relationship? No, sorry, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yes. The thing is, let me explain something important that I've learned through my long experience with this whole subject and also from what they've explained to me. Let's see, humans will always in some way connect with that. The hardest part when you're in this situation, which is basically a very big challenge, actually an extremely big challenge, is figuring out how to deal with it, is knowing that many people connect with realities that can be negative, but there's one detail that's important. When they talk to you about something that's always negative, it's often going to be very difficult for them to help anyone through a vibration because it's within a paradigm that is reflecting its own vibration. In other words, you have to know this. The most complex thing about the quantum universe, ufology and energies, the most complex thing is thinking outside the box, outside the system. That's the hardest thing there is. So if you don't try to think outside the system wants you to think about fear, about bad bugs, about how a being that's ugly must be evil, right?
Exactly. And what's ugly? Imagine what is ugly. Sorry to interrupt, but what is ugly? I mean, because there are some beautiful beings with a beautiful benevolence who are very tall beings with legs like this, who are like the equivalent of mollusks here on Earth, and they're hideous. I mean, by Earth standards of beauty, they're scary. But you see, so it's all, sorry, I just wanted to...
Exactly. And the same thing happens in the false light
and
how things can be fake and what happens. People who always think like that are thinking what the system wants them to think. That's the issue, and they'll never give themselves the space to realize that if they keep thinking that way, they'll never connect with positive beings who will tell you, look, you're living that reality, you're connecting with that because of your vibration. The blame for what you're experiencing doesn't lie with the beings there. The world is vibrating. What happens in all of humanity, even the duality, is because people go and vote for certain policies, because we are responsible for what happens in the world. We're vibrating, right? In that dual frequency that shapes everything that's shaping reality. In other words, we get what we deserve. So, of course, if you focus on Chico Xavier's movie, Our Home, the movie, the book, you'll see that in the highest spiritual world, there's a conduct. I mean, they help you love your neighbor, to know that God exists from a standpoint of divinity, that we are all God, and that God is evolving through us. but that there's a divinity where there's an order, right? Ethics, values, the love, as I said, for others, helping those who are in need. There is an order, right? And that is the positive thing. And chaos, which is disorder, which is lack, is what takes you to the threshold, to that vibrational state of darkness. And that happens as it is above, so it is below, and as it is below, so it is above. I mean, in the spiritual world, when someone is at that threshold, in that darkness, it's because they're vibrating through their lacks, through their selfishness, through their lack of solidarity. We are creating those connections, right? And that is the hardest thing to understand. You'll connect with reptilians, you'll think everything is manipulation, or that there's a false light. And you're already creating that reality, you're creating those egregores too. And you're also creating connections that aren't positive. The system wants people to think that way. And so what people do with the chupacabra thing and all that idea of fears in the countryside is a manipulation out there so that people don't go out. Obviously, for people who have a really difficult time with that reality, if you often analyze it, you'll see that they do an interview or tell you about how terrible it is. It's like the entities do a kind of harm to you so that you go and spread the word about it.
Sure, yeah, no, and sorry to interrupt you there, but this whole thing about kidnappings or abductions and experiments and all that, I also feel, as I've said, I mean, it doesn't fully reflect, I mean, that there are regressed races or species is a possibility, or the other is that there are simply earthly matter specifically to discredit these contacts. I was talking about the false light.
Invented things, right?
Invented things.
Military engineering.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I meant.
There's so much livestock. And look, all this livestock died. And that's to discredit it, right?
That's right. And about the false light, it's because there has been, I feel there are regressed, confused beings that I like to call. I don't like to call them demons or whatever anymore. Low vibration beings who present themselves with a kind of, I mean, a case like this that I'll tell you about. A person who tells me they had serious financial problems, their company was bankrupt. In their desperation, they ask, which is the concept of praying, right? And they ask Jesus Christ. And then they say that he appears like in a meditation or something, an image appears that resembles Jesus Christ and says to him, look, I'm going to solve, which from the start doesn't add up, but he says, I'm going to solve all the financial problems, your company will flourish and all, but you have to accept this soul contract that symbiotic relationship of the deities, of the gods of the past, of the rain god, kill 5 people for me and I'll give you rain. Those are regressed beings. They are low vibration entities. They are demons. So that's what I mean by the false light, this appearance of beings, but there's always a symbiotic relationship. They need you for you to give to them, and they say they'll give to you, and well, no, it's not the relationship we want.
I see.
And just to finish up, and so your case definitely isn't that. I didn't mean to imply it, but there's a lot. I feel it's also to discredit the real light when beings come. And as you say, they come to give, not to ask. They come to offer. They come to give clarity, not confusion. They come to give harmony, not entropy or chaos. So they want us to always have that fear of the false light because, yes, it's not hard for them to impersonate, especially religious figures, seeking to confuse you and make you believe in this relationship with superior beings when we're all superior beings and will be superior beings. And we already have a better, higher version. I mean, it's not that they're special. We are all part of creation. We all have this co-creator power that you mentioned. So it's just about understanding that relationship and that it's not about worship and sacrifice. I mean, for me, none of that fits into the real light. So that's why I'm telling you.
Let's see. Yes. Let me explain something that was hard for me to understand. My contact started out quite dark. I think we need to know that this world is like a big school. Well, to a school, it's like a school. We come here to learn and various paradigms will arrive, right? The evangelists, Jehovah's Witnesses, various types of
This is incredible.
realities, the multiverse. We're like a Marvel movie, right? With that multiverse of realities everywhere. You have to know the following. And I'm going to say something quite intense, right? That was hard for me to understand and process. And when I've connected with the avians, the ET avian race in physical form, if you connect with certain beings, obviously, if we talk about other realities of Earth, right? Of the world's stages, the world's processes, all the different realities Earth went through, realize that they've found maybe a watch from this 20th century was found from I don't know, 1,000 years ago, right? And why is that? Well, it is because the world actually has that dimensional aspect. And there are alternate realities where people can travel in time. Not that they simply travel, but rather they cross through dimensional portals and move outside of space and time. It's honestly very complex, right? And evidence remains of how the world had several stages, births, destructions.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
The whole universe is quite quantum. If one connects with certain races from that time, biblical times, right? Obviously, there was an issue there, not of involution, but of their own evolution, where they sometimes depended on that other, right? Both the positive and the negative ones depended on that other. So what happens is, I'm going to tell you something that might be quite complex for your mind.
Explode. No, my only real fear is that they're going to block our video, but in any case, go ahead.
Well, what people are actually experiencing is not exactly that they are connecting with something directly. Rather, they are connecting with a memory, a recollection that is not a lie. People who remember that they had to worship a being or something like that must have been individuals who truly lived in that way. They lived that way, worshipping. Because even the most positive beings of that time, like the avians, sought to be worshipped, right? I mean, no one escapes. It's not like they were all kind and...
Are you talking about the blue avians or avians?
Yes, which actually, yes. Actually, I mean, yes, blue avians is how Hollywood puts it. In reality, they're also the avian race, you see?
So avians in general? I mean, yes.
It's just that there are several avian races.
Who were in Egypt a lot, as I understand it, right?
Yes, without knowing. For me, in physical contact, I make the distinction between physical contact and contact that is channeled, because physical contact is direct information, meaning my mind doesn't intervene. It's like listening to you.
Uh-huh.
I see a contact and I hear you, I hear the beings physically, and they've given me a lot of information, but what happens? You have to know that their vision of things has to do with that time. And I believe that today, with the experience I have, on one hand, there's the system that loves for people to think about the false light, because it's fascinated. The system is happy with that because it creates a false light. They create all that because people get more confused.
Of course.
And the other thing happens too, that the one who experiences that is also a memory of how it was millions of years ago, certain historical periods of humanity living alongside these beings, where there was indeed an issue of pacts. Give me an animal, we sacrifice it in exchange for, and Jehovah appears and all that, which are entities, right? That can be draconian.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Sorry to...
Sure, but in reality, that whole matter is from a time, an alternate reality that maybe happened millions of years ago, and that evokes a small fragment of reality, and that the cabal, the deep state, takes advantage of that whole situation, that memory that people experience, those connections. The deep state takes advantage to boost that as well. Because that historical process that people relive is because they are connecting. I can assure you 1000% that those people who live that negative experience, it's because they're vibrating in that way, right? In a dual way, okay? That's why sometimes it's like a home run, let's say, connecting with the beings from up here, vibrating like that. It's like you have to understand many things to... I mean, I vibrate poorly, but I want to connect with the truth, not connect with something that is part of a historical period. So there we go back to the same thing. That person who sees that Christ, who tells them such a thing, that there's a pact, it's a reflection, that connection of his. I know that maybe it's very hard for him to accept it, right?
No, yeah. I mean, it appeared to him that way because of him, like you say.
Because of him. And one day they'll tell me, look, Juan, you're right. I was vibrating at a frequency that connected with that. It can't be denied because you have to admit it. When I connected with negative things, it was because I smoked, right? I was smoking cigarettes. I was on another wavelength, and I had to admit I was vibrating poorly, right? So this whole topic is a matter of vibration. Now, then comes the following, which is the famous spiritual war that Chico Javier talks about. Allan Kardec talks about it. So what exactly is spiritual warfare, and why do people talk about it? In Allan Kardec's book, The Spirit's Book, which talks about that, for me, it's totally true. They definitely exist. You can call them archons, demons. That does exist, just like the beings of light that represent themselves as angels, beings of light, of great consciousness. We are in a world where there is yin and yang, good and darkness. In that darkness, we have to know that spiritual warfare exists. What is spiritual warfare? There are entities, as Allan Kardec said in his book, and as many mediums said at that time, many spiritists and many people who were in these connections, that the invisible world has more power than the visible world. And it's true. I mean, if you're vibrating low, you connect with that invisible world that will want to manipulate you at all costs to be able to destroy you. because that world of darkness is also combined with the system, so that you don't know the truth. The most paradoxical thing about this is that if someone from the deep state passes away, their soul will continue working for the darkness. It's curious, but they keep working for the darkness. You really have to understand that in the realm of spiritual warfare, manipulation does indeed exist in that particular aspect. False light also exists within that world, within that ongoing conflict. But all of that exists because someone is vibrating in that manipulation that they truly desire. Now, if I bring that truth to humanity, you see, look, there is false light. Just be careful with the false light. That's fine. It's a warning, but how do we really do it? What is the real solution to that? Realizing that I'm vibrating, we're vibrating that way, and seeking to change our frequency to realize that it's a form of vibration which is normal. I know that what I'm saying is very complex and I know it's interesting in the sense that many people who have a bad experience, it's because of that. And the other thing is the mind plays a very important role. The mind gets suggestible. Understand that sometimes there are beings that you, before birth, we're talking about physical contact now, you before birth have a pact with a race.
Okay, we lost you for a second. Juan Carlos, you were saying that you, before being born.
Right, before being born, you make a pact with a race.
That's right.
A pact, but I mean a pact not in the sense of a ceremony, but more of an energetic matter, more of a commitment.
Okay, sure.
And they, in your life, throughout your life, in your daily routine, they're going to abduct you. They'll see how you are, how your body is, if it's adapting to their planet, to this planet, and you talk with them and don't remember. So people interpret that as an abduction or as something negative because of belief systems. If you look at Hollywood movies, you have all these films about abductions because it sells, about negative beings that are going to take you away. It sells you the worst of everything.
It's just that we love it, Juan Carlos. We love fear. We love the kind of excitement that all these types of things generate. We love it. That's why what you mentioned, just very briefly, what you mentioned at the beginning of the video about why current influencers or YouTubers who have millions of followers, it's content like that, gossip, morbid curiosity, and so on, because
how terrible.
I include myself, we love it as humanity, right? We have to transcend that.
No, and
sorry, go ahead.
I was telling you that when someone has an extraordinary experience, I've taught contactism to many people because I like to teach. Because once a person came to me who saw beings that were like water and see, because there are many people who don't dare to express it publicly, nor will they ever accept an interview for anything.
That's right.
And she told me she saw beings shaped like water with a kind of transparency. And she'd say to me, no, because they're ugly and it's something negative, they want to take me. And I said, no, it's something different. It's something, let's understand that. Let's comprehend why that is. And later she realized they were positive beings with a different appearance. And that she was connecting with them, right? What happens is that the system unfortunately manages to manipulate the person, the people. So those who have a contact experience see it as something traumatic, as something ugly, because the system shaped you that way, that they're bugs, the boogeyman, terror, right? That they're entities. And since it's not endorsed by the system, people connected with that reality. And there's the big struggle, right? What one must know how to understand about all this. There's the
key. There's the key, as you say.
That's the key, right? Because maybe they're memories of other realities. It's a link you're having with that reality. But what happens there? You'll always stay in the same bubble, right? No, these negative beings that have appeared to me, and I go to church to see if I can get rid of these demons. When the key is in understanding that ability, could they be negative beings? Or is it my own, my prejudices, my fears, my shortcomings, or whatever it is that's giving power to that reality? Look, exorcism does exist. It exists. There are people who feel possessed connecting with dark entities. That does exist. I won't deny it. But there's also a condition of that individual of how they connected with that reality, in what way and how that got into their body, right? It exists. All that exists. But everything is much more complex than it seems.
Sure.
It's much more complex because what happens, let's see, if I used to think, right, if people worship something, my parents, for example, were Catholic, right? They were Catholic and they left, they've departed, they've transcended to that reality. And before I might have thought, bah, my parents are worshipping the Virgin, and maybe they're taken to a manipulation system and are used as if they were, I don't really know, creatures, right? Creatures that are manipulated, that are controlled, and that exist in what you might call an archontic system. Look, then the beings told me, they said, if everything were truly like that, you wouldn't even be able to speak at all. I mean, it would be just like the movie The Matrix, right? Where everyone is plugged into the computer, everyone is connected, and nobody has any real freedom. I mean, they were telling me in an almost exaggerated way, like we're all plugged into some kind of circuits, right? Like we're all just part of a machine. But it's not like that. It's really not. You have freedom, you really do have the ability to choose and to act on your own. You can talk about this, you can give your opinion on whatever you want, because let's say the intervention has already been made. The Dracos wanted to take over the Earth 100%, and then the Andromedans appear, which Alex Collier talks about, who are from Lyra. They're descendants of Lyra, the human-shaped Andromedans, and that's the end of the story, right? They made their intervention and didn't let. That's why today one can live in the middle of a field, disconnect from electricity, and that's why the internet allows us to talk about this. Because then what the deep state can do is maybe is lower the views, attack in that way, but not much more, because they've been losing the battle for a long time. The Draconians are honestly no longer quite the same force that they were back in their own time, when they actually did have control over humanity in, let's say, in biblical times, yes, but there was a very big war, right, in those times. So currently, the Dracos move, and the Greys, the Dracos move within that Orion, right? They move within that paradigm, and they work for the deep state, and they seek to influence and manipulate, but they don't have that much power either, because otherwise you and I wouldn't be here. I can assure you that the Dracos, if it were up to them, we'd be there all connected in artificial chambers, and they'd take our blood. It would be terrible. So in reality, there's an intervention that's noticeable. I can go out into the street, see the sun. I mean, it's not that, well, there's an intervention by positive beings. So you have to know that there were historical processes that have already passed, and that humanity is now everything positive that's happening, the sightings. I mean, it's because of what's coming, because of the great intervention they're making, so that humanity knows the truth. And what is that truth for? So that humanity can know about free energy, which is the end of all human sadness, right?
It's over. The system is over with free energy.
That's it. So what happens? Luis Elizondo comes out now saying that no, that a negative invasion is coming. And of course, it's all funded because they already know that something is coming now. Something positive is coming in reality. It's so that people don't go out, don't look up.
Do you reject it too? Be afraid, vibrate in fear?
Their vibration.
Of course, in fear.
It's so that people don't go out, are afraid, the blue beam know that it's going to be all negative. They're going to invade you. Disclosures who are funded precisely by, I already know this in depth, right? Who are funded by certain agencies to say, no, something terrible is coming, the Dracos, an alien invasion is coming. And it's the same thing, and people out there consume it and believe it. That's why I say the best way is to know. Sometimes I know I'm very critical, but if I give you a therapy where I tell you, look, in this holistic hypnosis, right? You're going to destroy a group of negative beings. I'm selling you something that's a fallacy, that's a lie. When instead of telling you, look, change your vibration, I help you vibrate differently, and you no longer connect with that reality. One of the things these beings I connect with were telling me is that they stimulate a healing process in you. It's very interesting. It's not that they stimulate you when they make the manifestation. They stimulate in your consciousness your own healing process. It's incredible. I mean, it's not that they're going to cure you. They stimulate something.
You cure yourself. You heal yourself. They align you, let's say.
It's incredible.
That's right. Yes, that's totally correct.
When I asked about topics, I can't say why something can have a certain cure or improvement is because there's a constant they mentioned to me in the system through television, through this, through the media, through the press, and through it confirming that it's really going to help you. So they explained that a placebo, if I build a whole idea for you, that can heal you. If I build a whole mental structure for you, right? So when you build a radionic device to understand free energy a bit, right? One must understand how energy acts, how vibration acts. It means that if you build a platform, a whole guide, right? Look, this can help you, blah, blah, blah. Even if the switch's knob is fictitious, but people live it and feel it, And well, something happens. It's complex to say it here.
No, honestly, I thank you so much, Juan Carlos. Very elevated topics, and I feel there's a lot of material left. We've been going for about 1 hour, a little over 1 hour. I just wanted to tell you before handing over the microphone for you to give us your final comments that, well, very briefly, my experience hasn't been like yours. I haven't physically seen what you've seen. For me, it has come in a different way.
No, it's the same as...
I was asking you about the blue avians because when I was a child, I had many sorts of journeys. They weren't astral travels. They were a different experience with blue avians, and they let me know that I was part of them and from many other places, not just from them, right? But they came as my stellar family of blue avians. They came and taught me many things. Communication was via telepathy, and it was a journey in the universe. Then later the memories started returning, and another very beautiful memory was when experiencing omnipresence, which I'm sure we've all done, which is simply when you're preparing for another experience and experiencing the void and some other things. A memory of the Pleiades has recently returned to me, coming from the distant star of Maya, and I can feel how they are patiently waiting for me there, just as before. So I'm here like so many, like you, I'm sure, like millions, billions, we are here. But that's why I say we're all extraterrestrials, because in a way, although there's surely a terrestrial process, most of the Earth has been formed by all these multiple invasions, as you say, right? So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my process. And we're recording this on a Saturday, next Wednesday. This won't come out until October. We're recording in September. I have a trip, honestly, now that you mentioned it. You and I should talk later because I'd like to plan a trip to visit you in Uruguay and have this experience.
You know what I was going to tell you, Alex? I recently had an interview on a channel you can look up later. It's well known. It's Steve Locke's channel, an interview on physics of creation. And he uploaded it. I sent him the original Dimensional Portal video, and he joined my workshops, the Magalini workshop. It's a humble workshop so that people can get in touch with me. My idea is to form a group of people. I've already formed many groups, but my idea is this year I'm already putting together this group where he'll participate, several people will, for psychography and to have a deep contact experience. So what I mean is you don't need to travel after this life to Maya to meet them or have the chance to meet them. And I wanted to tell you that regarding the blue avians, when you're really into contactism, just as I am, I honestly don't need to bring along any special equipment or devices to try to test Corey Good in order to determine whether his contact is actually fake or not. For me, that's not needed since I already make contact, right? You know what I mean?
Well, yes.
When I went for contact with the blue avians, physically, not mentally, right? Physically. Yes. I wanted to know if what Corey Good said about the blue avians was real. I did the psychography, the prior connection, I channeled because you need a lot of preparation for this, which coincidentally matches what's been said on the show. It's true. And I have a link with Sixto Paz and all that, right? And I talked to him. And it matches a lot. Well, he's very happy with my experience, the testimony, the cases, the other videos he's recorded. But beyond that, the preparation matches, the frequency issue for that contact. So it turns out I did a preparation. I went for contact to see if the avians existed, and indeed the avians existed. And without knowing any information about Corey Good, and even if I did, we're talking about physical contact, I hear them from outside. They are beings standing right there, right? Physically. And they give me information that when I write it down matches the law of one perfectly. They told me, but Juan, this is incredible because it's clear it's not information you copied from somewhere. And they told me everything being said nowadays is coming true. I've even been interviewed about those little videos I made reading the answers the beings gave me. So the contact you've had with them is a contact that also exists from a physical standpoint. It's not just a spiritual matter, right? They exist physically. And it's very interesting what you've shared about the avians.
Thank you. No, thank you. And I wanted to tell you that this Wednesday is a trip I've always looked forward to. My wife and I are going along with 2 other friends to Sedona, Arizona. So, I mean, I know it's very commercial, maybe, I don't know, but I do feel that there are situations and, well, we're going to try to have this contact. We're also going to a meditation of, I know this is commercial. I know it's different from what.
No, it's fine.
But I don't know if you've heard of Bashar, right?
Daryl Anka.
Bashar, by the way, have you heard of him?
Yes, of course.
Okay, let's go.
I found out about it through Steve Locks, actually, who was telling me about Daryl Anka, Bashar.
That's right. We're going to go there for 2 days to Bashar's presentation, and there will be meditations and everything. I mean, I've always said that this isn't necessary. I mean, like you say, this isn't simply, let's say, an experience we want to have. I've always said, as you rightly say, that everything is vibrational, and you're absolutely right. And before giving you the last word, just to say what I've already mentioned before here on my channel, that I feel that we create this reality. So if we want to transcend this reality, we have to create another reality, and another reality of a higher vibration with other values, with another objective, unity, love.
That's it.
Service to others.
That's it.
That's what we have to look for, and leave this reality behind. This reality cannot be changed.
Yes, exactly.
So with this, I give you the last word, Juan Carlos.
Good.
And I thank you very much. Incredible.
A gift for your channel, I'm going to give you now, if you give me some time to give you this gift. Thank you. I want to make this connection with Siriana because honestly, it's the first time in an interview that I really want to do this, to actually share it with people. I don't know if it's because I'm just so used to it that, so you'll tell me to share this language with you and I'll set a timer. I'll look at a stopwatch. Maybe if you allow me, maybe 5 minutes would be fine.
No, perfect. As much time as necessary.
5 minutes is fine. I'll make this connection, and this, it doesn't matter if they watch it later or not. The effect of this connection makes changes in people's lives. What light language has, so you understand a little bit, so you can understand it. You know what the Akasha is, right? Where we all are with the, well, I think I know.
Yes, absolutely, definitely, of course.
All that connection of light language are beings, that light language appears in churches, which is normal. I mean, it's even interesting because in the Catholic Church, speaking in tongues, the Holy Spirit, I mean, it's always been infiltrating the connections within the dogmas. I mean, it's something that is archaic, but there's an evolution within each archaic system. And light language, the Holy Spirit, as they call it, is precisely the connection with the Akasha, right? With what today I already know as superconsciousness and the source. These beings connect from such a high level of light frequency that, let's say, the information they handle is light information. It's as if they were... they transcend our verbal language and it becomes an abstract language, but they decode, I don't know how to tell you, it decodes the deepest structure of the being, of the I am, right? It's like it's decoding that structure and it's already sound. It turns into sound and frequency, vibration. Basically, it's like the Tibetan singing bowl, right? Like that's right, what the gong is, right? It's like it already transforms into sound and vibration. And it's a language that, although you can't understand it consciously, like listening to me when I speak or listening to some channeled message, it transcends everything and begins to energetically release many patterns that are blocked. So these beings from Lyra, I already told you, they made connections in Lyra, before the Draconian invasion. They made this connection with divinity and connected with the light language. The Syrians too realized that after Tiamat, after Tiamat, many beings migrated to various places, Andromeda, to Sirius, right? Sirius A, Sirius B, right? And many of these beings, many indigenous cultures, indigenous peoples, with the great technology, the Pleiadians, all connected with that light frequency, which is known as the Akash, right? Which we call the Akash. And that is where the symbology appears. The whole issue of quartz appears to connect with higher frequencies, which helps to channel, is the whole Akash system, right? And they explained that from that so powerful connection, there are beings who are at such a great level of connection in what the dimensions are, that they use that language to heal. And curiously, many shamans and many indigenous people in Mexico, in various parts of the world, make a kind of language and communication in their folklore, right? Which is similar. So my idea is to let these beings, that a Syrian or this group of beings, because in reality it's not that it's a single being, but that they are like several beings, do a meditation with you and with your audience and with the people who might be following me. And well, the experience is about 5 minutes. It can sometimes cause a bit of amusement because of the sound. But when I achieve that sound, you have to keep in mind that sometimes people have wanted to imitate it, that it's not a matter of musical, okay? It's something that only gives you that connection when you've surrendered to the experience, and then they transform the sound of your voice. They transform it's like you give space to your body, to your body, so that they can communicate in a vibrational way and begin to have an energetic effect on people. My idea is to do a meditation with that language, and then after that, people will tell you what they felt, what they experienced. It's a way to really put them into a spiritual experience, to allow them to immerse themselves in something deeper and more meaningful, and to connect on a level that goes beyond just words. Put them into a spiritual experience with sound, right? With that connection to induce them, right?
Thank you very much. Whenever you're ready. I'm going to put my microphone on mute, okay? Well, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Go ahead. Well, I'll tell you that there's a detail with Juan Carlos, and it makes no sense for me to explain exactly what. I'm just going to end the broadcast now. There was a problem there, and we couldn't connect anymore. We're going to leave for a future recording the gift he wanted to give us, this meditation. And well, thank you very much for your attention. This was very interesting. The truth is that it was everything and more than I expected to have in this talk with Juan Carlos. An incredible being, certainly. And I just thank you very much. And please, we'll see you in the next broadcast. My apologies that this ends like this. The first talk that's happened like this out of many that I've been lucky enough to have. But there was a detail that we couldn't resolve. And so I have to end it all by myself. Thank you very much. I hope you have an excellent day.
Thank you for making it to this part of the video. This is my favorite part. This is where I suggest to you that you discover your true self. You are not what you have been groomed to believe. You are this incredible being without limits that has eternal life, amazing strength, infinite wisdom, and a big, beautiful heart. All your limits are always self-imposed. Your best version in this reality is inside you. Your only mission on this life is to become a beacon of love and to serve others. This version is ready to be discovered today. How do you discover your true self? The discovery process is a personal one. No one can do it for you. Dedicate 5 minutes a day to talk to the universe. Simply ask, who am I? Where do I come from? What is my purpose? You will start getting signs, breadcrumbs, and signals. You will notice how your notions about this reality start disappearing. No more hierarchies, no more competition, no more complaining, no more depending on others. Discovering your true self equals to real freedom. Your self-imposed limits will fall and you will be ready to understand this reality, but you must be patient to allow others to wake up at their time through their own free will. That will be really soon, you will see, and that will set up a new world. As you work towards your best version, you will notice how all emotions don't serve you anymore. Hate, fear, rage, pride, lust, envy, violence, justice, true violence, judgment of others, and other emotions will disappear from your mind and heart. You will understand those emotions serve only your egoic mind and are not you. Please try to be understanding of others that don't think or feel like you. Everyone has a process. No one is right or wrong. We are all just different. Don't be concerned about being right, ever. Don't allow pride preventing you from patching things up with family and friends. It's very important you enjoy this life with your loved ones. Put in the work to patch things up and leave it to others to decide. Thank you very much for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, please use the comment section below. For private questions, conversations, and if you would like to appear on the show, please email me at hey@thealexshow.tv. Thank you again. Please don't forget to visit our website www.thealexshow.tv. By giving me your time, you honor me. Have a very, very, very